who are fans of Star Trek, in the words of the Borg, resistance is futile, you will be assimilated, but unfortunately we can't. For us at Virgin Trains and throughout the Virgin companies, delivering fantastic customer service is all about our frontline teams. They're the ones who create that relationship, that trust access with our customers. So our leaders have to focus on supporting others, not their egos, so you need to really understand yourself and the people. If you like, most people draw organisation charts with the CEO at the top. An effective organisation is when you tip it upside down, and the most uncomfortable person in that organisation is the CEO at the bottom. The most comfortable people in that organisation are the frontline teams dealing with the customers. If you want some bedtime reading, I can recommend Sir Richard's books. Of course. I am not on a commission, I hasten to add. Jack Welch of GE is worth a read. And an interesting book, which I think you would find very interesting, is a guy called Ricardo Semler wrote a book called The Maverick. And a lot of what I've discussed tonight appears in there. So it might give you some good insight into leadership. That's the formal bit over. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'm very happy to take whatever questions you have. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I think it's interesting when you mention rugby, and I talked about listening to people. Some of you may remember when there was that very high-profile engineering overrun over one Christmas when rugby was actually closed for a week longer than it should have been. It was interesting. We knew they were going to overrun because we'd gone and asked the signalmen and the civil contractors doing the work whether they could complete it on time, and they said no. So we told Network Rail, and they didn't listen. And we told the ORR, the Office of Rail Regulation, and they didn't listen. And they were very, very surprised when they ran over by a week. And we were telling them back in October that it was going to overrun. And that just shows you the power of going and asking the people doing the job and listening to what they've got to say. And it's still very much that way today, unfortunately, in terms of Network Rail in the command and control structure. But again, the people at the front line of Network Rail are fantastic people. They're passionate about doing a good job. But thank you very much for the high praise. Thank you. I think what I would say from the outset, we've done quite a lot of work with a charity called the Career Academies. And the Prince's Trust, and there is an awful lot of talent in our young people, and if you can give them the right opportunity and to realise that talent, you know, I'm probably one of the few people who doesn't worry about the youngsters working to pay my pension when I retire, because there is a hell of a lot of talent out there. I think where we serve them badly is the way we train and develop them. I think we have a chase for statistics, for league tables, and we spend very little time on their personal skills. So one of the things we try to do, when, as I say, we tend to try and recruit for attitude as opposed to experience or qualifications. And we do try to bring out the manners, the way to approach and deal with people within our training programs. And we don't always get it right, to be fair. You know, we still have a lot more to do. But I think businesses can help a lot in the way they take people into their organisations and work on that, particularly if it's a customer-facing role, is work on those type of skills. My experience is the youngsters will listen, and they are willing to learn. And we've got some tremendous young people who've had a pretty tough start in life, but given the opportunities, they will come on. And you know, one of the things we were going to do if we had have won the franchise was put an awful lot more effort into apprenticeships, into bringing youngsters on board into the business. But I think the talent's there. I think we need to grasp that talent and nurture it. Do you want to get home tonight? I think in many ways I sort of touched on some of it in what I said just. I think my experience with government procurement, and it is limited to rail franchising, is they put so much faith in the process, they lose that ability to put a judgment over what the process is telling them. I'll give you a very simple example, is when the decision was announced, we were able to reverse engineer the numbers very quickly. And 70 million. The number of passengers that they would have to put on the train by the end of the franchise was around about 70 million people a year. The number of seats for those 70 million people was 60 million seats. So you couldn't physically get the passengers on the train, and that was never picked up in the process. They then were predicting 10.4% revenue growth per annum for every year for 14 years. You're thinking, that's impossible. So what went wrong was their process didn't do the sensible checks that an experienced train operator would check. And then when they applied their risk analysis, they didn't pick up the risks. And instead they asked for £190 million worth of loan facility as a guarantee, they should have asked for 600 million. So it was, and they were using models which were not fit for purpose. So the process completely collapsed because the people who were analysing the bids just weren't experienced enough to do that. And we spotted that within 3 hours of the announcement being made. But it took us threatening judicial review and going to court to get the government to review the numbers. And then they found out exactly what we'd been saying. So we were right, but the consequence has been, as you've seen, they've cancelled the competition and they're going to start again sometime. So I think it's down to a process that wasn't fit for purpose, and people who were running that process weren't experienced enough to do the sort of procurement job that was being asked of them. You're probably not surprised. I think it's been a success. I think what you have to, I'm often asked this question, and I think if you look at the investment that's come into the rail industry since privatisation, I think in the first 7 years of privatisation, something like over £9 billion of new rolling stock was brought in and financed by the private sector. I think the West Coast route modernisation should have cost £2 billion, but because of Railtrack's problems, it ended up costing £9 billion. But the fact there was a contract in place, which we had, government couldn't take the easy way out and cancel it. They had to build it out to a degree. And I think for the rail industry going forward, we need to get the private sector to invest in the rail industry. I think what has happened, if you look at when Railtrack collapsed several years ago, everything was brought back into government control, including train procurement. And if you look at the new trains that have come in the last 6 years, it's literally just over £1 billion. And I think there's no doubt the capacity in the rail industry is reaching its limit. And we have to bring the private sector in to fund a lot of the investment that's needed. And that can be done. It was done very successfully at the start of privatisation, I've said, with the amount of new rolling stock, the amount of track improvements that were done. And we've done very little since it's been more in government control with shorter franchises in the last 6 years. We have to reverse that. Otherwise, the railways will get full and passengers will